The following is a short tutorial on patchwriting. The third form of plagiarism Howard discusses is called patchwriting. She defines it as writing passages or words that are not copied exactly, but that have nevertheless been borrowed from another source with some changes, a practice which the Bedford Handbook for Writers calls paraphrasing the source's language too closely. This patchwriting is plagiarism regardless of whether one supplies footnotes, endnotes, or parenthetical notes that acknowledge the source. Patchwriting occurs when students copy and paste in material from a source and make too few changes to it, switching out words here and there, but essentially keeping the same sentence structure as the original, or too many of the same words. The general rule to avoid patchwriting is to make sure to paraphrase correctly or to quote whenever you take 3 or more words in a row from a source. The issue then is with how the student has incorrectly paraphrased the material and not whether or not the student has produced a citation. For my discussion of patchwriting, I am again using an example from the Penn State University Library's website. In this example, we will look at 3 errors in the student's adoption of the original passage. In the first sentence of the original passage, it reads, "Adult criminals and youth involved in illegal activities have reported that guns are not difficult to obtain." The student has written, "According to Page and Hammermeister, adults and youth involved in criminal activity have reported that guns are easy to obtain." Thus, the student has changed a few letters in the first part of the sentence, has changed the word illegal to criminal, and has changed the phrase not difficult to easy. Thus, the student has merely replaced a few words. In the second example, the blue example, the student borrows the sentence structure from the original too closely. Thus, the original reads, "Illegal or unregulated transactions are the primary sources of guns used in violent acts. Stealing, borrowing from friends or acquaintances, and illegal purchasing of guns are the most common." The student lifts the 3-part structure in his or her adoption of the original passage. Stealing, borrowing from friends, and illegal purchasing are the most common. Some of the words have been changed, but the sentence structure remains the same. In the last example, the student merely changes the word purchased to bought. Thus, overall, the student has merely copied and pasted in the original passage and changed too few of the words or structure. This constitutes patchwriting. Instead, to avoid patchwriting, a student must learn how to paraphrase correctly. This student has effectively paraphrased the original passage. The phrase gun epidemic, for example, replaces the idea that guns are not difficult to obtain by criminals. The phrase illicit guns replaces the various mentions of illegal guns or guns used in violent acts. The phrase fewer than 20% replaces the phrasing less than 1 in 5 guns. And finally, where the student chose to keep the original phrasing, the student put quotation marks around the passage that he or she chose to use. Lastly, note that some things could carry over without quotation marks, such as licensed gun dealers, and fewer than 20% for less than 1 in 5. The rule is that commonplace nouns and statistics can be copied without using quotation marks. Finally, note that the student cites the authors in the sentence and the parenthetical citation, even though most of the information is paraphrased. Overall, the best way to avoid patchwriting is to learn what the source material is saying, and then to step away from the material, or come up with an original way of saying it without looking at the original passage. Thank you. Please return to the Blackboard website and take the accompanying quiz.